So many announcements due to Microsoft Ignite, such as Microsoft showing a cloud for developers needs end-to-end, responsible AI dashboard, NUTANIX management in Azure, control Windows OS without PowerShell or RDP, and much more. Hey there, I'm Matt Carolyn, and welcome to this month's Puck Online, where we aim to bring you the hot topics for the last month in the public cloud space. Today, I'm here in Austin, Texas, Formula One race this weekend, and also I'm hanging out here at the new SHI office, which was recently finished during COVID, so making the best of the weather with the sunrise in the background. And in Microsoft Azure news, so in the middle of October, Microsoft held their annual Ignite event in Seattle, which featured keynote speakers Satya Nadella and Scott Guthrie. The purpose of Ignite each year is for Microsoft to communicate and educate on the products upcoming and existing. Lots of announcements came out at the event. I focused mostly on those that apply to Azure in some shape or another. So let's get into it briefly. Microsoft used Ignite to talk about how Azure is a developer's cloud with cloud-native built applications that reach from GitHub to Visual Studio and out onto Azure, the platform. Azure provides the self-service developers need in order to test in isolation, removing the wait for available resources to test on. Earlier this year at the Microsoft Build conference, Microsoft announced DevBox, and this also played into the story of having a nicely controlled environment for developers, especially in regulated industries. Azure Arc, Microsoft's multi-cloud managed solution, now has a single sign-on capability via Azure Active Directory that permits the management of all Azure resources and their SQL environments within the portal. Also, Azure Arc has improvements that let Microsoft Defender access and secure SQL Server estates across multi-cloud and hybrid environments. The Azure Automate feature automates best practice baseline settings for organizations that use Windows Server 2022, Azure Data Center Edition, or Azure Stack HCI. It will monitor those settings too. Azure AUTOMANAGE now works with Azure Virtual Machines and Azure Arc. In that respect, Azure AUTOMANAGE now applies settings to use log analytics workspaces, Azure tags, support for Windows 10 VMs, and enables Microsoft's anti-malware service. Sick of using RDP or PowerShell to make quick changes to your Windows OS? Well, now Windows Admin Center is now part of the Azure portal, which will allow you to manage the Windows Server operating system as well as files inside the Azure VM. You can access a long list of things such as events, files, file shares, firewalls, installed apps, local users, groups, processes, registries, scheduled tasks, services, updates, and more. This will definitely be handy for a lot of admins out there. Besides Windows Admin Center, Azure Portal can now be used to carry out server bus operations, and if you use Nutanix, organizations can now access Nutanix cloud clusters on Azure, which lets you use your existing Nutanix skills and tools in Azure. Azure Monitor now has a predictive auto-scale capability for Azure Virtual Machine scale sets that's based on the CPU load and network demand. There's also a basic logs and data archive, capabilities that promise to reduce log ingestion costs by 1/5, plus archiving for up to 7 years. The Azure Monitor agent used to collect the data telemetry now supports Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices, and Microsoft has released a migration tool to move from legacy log analytics agent. And Microsoft is planning to release to GA its new savings plan for Azure Compute Services later in October. The savings will be based on your commit to spend a fixed hourly amount for 1 or 3 years. The Azure Machine Learning Service now supports natural language processing and image tasks. It has an automated code generation capability for tabular images and text data too. A responsible AI dashboard for debugging machine learning models will be reaching GA soon as well. Azure Data Explorer, Microsoft's big data analytics solution, has access to new data types for data ingestion process that use for setting up queries. The following data types are now supported: Amazon Simple Storage S3, Azure Event Grid, Azure Cosmos DB via the new Azure Synapse Link connector to stream data from Cosmos DB, and OpenTelemetry metrics, logs, and traces. And Microsoft Entra, which is a product family name for permissions management, verified ID, and Azure Active Directory services, now has a conditional access authentication context feature that lets organizations set policies on the action users can take in applications. Now, there were many other announcements not covered here, including a long list of Power Automate, Teams, and Microsoft 365 new features and improvements. Check out the link in the details section of this video to Microsoft's complete book of announcements from the event. So in wrap up, make sure you check out publiccloud.ninja for links to all our podcasts, and online meetups and events. And click that like and subscribe button so that you get notified each month when we release a new episode. Our next episode will be in November. Till then, stay safe and keep challenging yourself.